Hello, and welcome to this edition of DeFacto Review, a weekly roundup of the biggest news shaping Mongolia. Hi, I'm Terrence Edwards, and with us is our host, Jargal DeFacto. We're live on Facebook at VTelevision, and you can join the conversation on Twitter with hashtag DeFacto. Let's look at what we have for the program this evening. Thank you for watching. Following a recommendation from the General Election Committee, a group of 5 MPs, led by MP N. Enkbolt, have submitted a new bill concerning the presidential election this year. Details about what changes have been made are sparse, but we do know that it is separate from the general law on elections. And the bill is up for debate with Parliament. Similar actions were taken last year regarding the parliamentary elections in June, when Parliament broke precedent by changing the rules of the election within 6 months of its date of being held. The fallout from that sudden change was the disenfranchisement of thousands of Mongolians living overseas, as well as upping the ante and giving an advantage to the major political parties. So, currently, the presidential election is decided by popular vote, Jargal. How do you think this has fared in the past for Mongolia? Is this the best way to go about it?
Well, this very idea of changing presidential election law opens big door to the constitutional amendments. Because in our Mongolian constitutions, president's candidate should be proposed by the political party which has a seat in parliament. And only those candidates proposed by these political parties will be elected by the people direct. Here they suggest either the parliamentarians will suggest that, parliamentarians will elect that president. And it's motivated also by one popular Deputy Speaker Nyamdort said that because president is, through donation, are being too much connected with big donors and becoming very much dependent on money. So that's the concern that have moved them to make new proposal. But again, it is an issue of constitutional amendments. If we amend the constitutions, it is not the only issue we need to solve. It has to do with the making or reshaping the governance structure in the country. Take executive structure, which is cabinet. Prime Minister became completely dependent on the legislative power, yes. Parliament. So he has missing a lot of power. He is not that strong power now anymore after somehow certain years of...
And we saw some conflict between the parliament speaker and the prime minister under the past administration under Saakashvili.
Always does. And now the issue is also about the parliament itself. Mongolians, we say there are 3 heights of power, but they are mistaken it because they are including the president into this power. President is not power, actually. In democratic society, the power is legislative, executive, and the judiciary power. These are 3 heads.
Yes.
But now, unfortunately, because this judiciary, all this power, security, all these institutions, only now that became completely dependent on president today. As I said, executive power is not anymore stronger. So in that circumstances now, Mongolians are raising an issue of having different structure in the parliament. Should we have 2-chamber parliament consisting of upper and lower chambers? Or do we change the power of the president? Because in certain cases, in our constitution it says Mongolia should have united power, united authority, which in some cases we are missing. For example, the case of visit of Dalai Lama.
Yes.
Cabinet wanted not that visit, did not want to the visit, President wanted to visit and organize it in such a way. Or the neutrality policy, neutrality policy of Mongolia.
Which is one of the main issues from the
Yeah,
president.
government was not supporting, but the president office. So now the issue is, who is the power? On several issues, that was a conflict of kind of among the powers. So it is an issue for Mongolia to take into consideration those missing points in our powers. But one thing is clear. Not to change the president power or change president election law, we need to be based on very peculiar, very detailed study, which can be done or maybe is being done by the research institute at the parliament. But I don't hear anything from their side, what they're saying. But again, they are creating, 5 parliament members are creating some working group that will bring the amendments to the law.
Yeah.
I think it's very short, and in fact, it's very bad practice, because somehow, before any election, this country are changing their laws. So we don't see that continuity on that.
So, from what I understand of what you said, it looks like that if the parliament was actually to choose the president, it would not only be redundant since they're already choosing the prime minister, it would completely change what that position means for Mongolia.
Correct.
Since it's really no longer representing the people or the public, it's representing the legislative again.
Again, in Mongolia, the representative democracy more or less working.
Yeah.
But participatory democracy is not working, which is logical continuation of the representative democracy. Why? Because those representatives we have elected are now still will have their own representatives as prime minister, as president, which somehow don't work, don't go in line with the democracy, the institutions we can imagine. We see that. Probably because the flaws, the sort of flaws we are talking about, Mongolian democracy is not strengthening enough, strong enough to make less economic crisis, less corruptions, better governance, and transparent governance. I think this is the concern of Mongolian society today.
Okay, and I really want to touch on this. This is the second time in 2 years Mongolian parliament is going ahead and changing the rules within 6 months of the election. And this is something that's asked not to do from international organizations and was even in Mongolian law until they changed the law. Conveniently changed that law.
It shows again that Mongolia is facing the lack of institutional capacity, whether it is a political institution or economic institutions. In particular, political institutions, among them, first of all, political parties, and we will discuss it later on that.
Yeah, we're going to get to that at the bottom of the end of the show.
Yep.
So, we next move on to a story within the mining sector, specifically concerning Mongolia's largest coal mine. Prime Minister Jargatoglu Erdoğan has proposed repayment of the $580 million owed by the Development Bank of Mongolia, while putting as little strain as possible on the now troubled economy. But that would mean or require a strategic investment agreement for the Talvin-Tolga coking coal mine that has been delayed for so many years. The Prime Minister has meanwhile denied reports that they plan to sell 49% interest of the state-owned mining unit, Ernest Talvin-Tolga, to just one buyer. And I'm going to read a quote from the Prime Minister last week. A working group has been established and they will produce a recommendation and have it discussed in Parliament. This world-recognized deposit will not move ahead without benefiting the people. Lawmakers and the public have been very wary of a strategic investment agreement because they are unsure of what the interest will be of their partners. There have already been 2 deals scrapped that both involved the Chinese company Shenhua Energy. So it seems that Talvin Toga cannot escape the politicalization. Now that Mongolia's economy is in such a rough patch, is this the best opportunity to get this done?
Well, good news is the Prime Minister promised that this deal will be discussed at the Parliament, which is good news because recently some bigger news, some bigger deals like Irtinet, 49% issue of Russian sales shares was not discussed at the Parliament, for example. So it's democracy at the end. So the issues of that sort of size must be discussed at the Parliament. But let's look at the Talvin Toga deal with bigger picture. What are the concerns of ordinary Mongolians, or the civil society of Mongolia?
The folks on the street.
Yep. So there is a reserve, resources. We know the size of the resources. With the current value, with certain method, we can estimate the value of that resources, okay? But to dig it out, process it, and transport to China, they require three types of infrastructure. One is a factory, power, third, railways.
The factory would be a washing plant for
processing it
yes.
Initially, yes. So now the question is who will pay for this investment? And then how they will recover that investment. If the whole thing is separated from the end buyer, then it's a problem because the end buyer one day said that we will not buy. Then what we will do with this big investment? So the concern of ordinary Mongolians is it should be connected with the end buyer. So in that case, in the deal, the participants is from China Xinhua Energy, which is the end user. So now the issue is the end user is to be responsible for investment, and they will recover the investment with the products at the international price of that time. So then they make it in infrastructure, they bring it to China, they buy it to themselves, right, with the agreed price. But now the issue is who will own it.
Yes.
But it is not a matter of deciding that we own it and we paid, which was almost the same deal with the OT, where we have been borrowing our shares related investment to the OT from the partner. I think this deal is not the best one. So the issue now is, from the beginning, Mongolian government can be a part of the management with the condition that after recovery of all costs, investments, Mongolia will be 50% of owner of the mine. But before that, still it will be a part of the controlling costs and expenses of the company from the beginning. So Xinhua is coming with whoever, it is second issue. So they are processing, doing everything, and they're recovering their cost after some certain years. Then at the day they agree, every year they will agree on they will finalize the cost and expenses agree. So that is after, say, 10, 20 years, now it's recovering the cost. Now let's go and share, and we have a share of 50%. So that's how Mongolians are looking for the deal. But of course, there are other subjects to discuss. One thing is clear. Mongolians should get the money according to our old laws related to any investment, any businesses. There should be royalty paid from the beginning. And of course, there are the social costs for the employees to be paid, and all the related payments to be paid. Otherwise, we don't see any positive cash flow to the country. So that if it is the conditions and terms that the government are dealing with, then I think Mongolian public at large would agree and accept. But other deals, under any other circumstances, will cause a lot of stirring in the society. And I think it cannot solve within a couple short months. And as you said at the beginning, that the government will pay Development Bank debt at the end of March on time.
580 million.
And if that debt payment is based with this Xinhua things, Mongolian government has to work very fast, a lot effective way to have this deal done.
Yeah, the clock is ticking for sure.
Yeah,
And it's worth remembering how we got here because we're looking at a strategic partnership, and part of the reason that it's so important is because the management of the mine has been so botched, and it's only been open since 2011. There's been countless scandals. There's been taking capital away from the company to distribute for social welfare funds, and it's really crippled the company from operating.
Well, this history is connected with non-transparency of political parties' financing, and which they have governments, political parties promised all this stuff before the election. At the end, the story was selling the Tawan Talga piece by piece. So they have a big debt now to Chinese company, now though it's becoming less. But still, the history of this Tawan Talga deal, all this what's happening with Tawan Talga is a very bad picture of Mongolian political landscape based on non-transparency, unfortunately. So hopefully we will correct the mistakes and go ahead, and we should do it.
And given from what we've heard, it's very likely that we'll see a similar deal as we saw in 2014 when there was a bid won from a consortium that includes Senwa Energy, Mongolian Mining Corporation, and possibly Sumitomo Corporation.
Yeah, this is the candidate Sumitomo name is coming mostly for marketing purpose, I understand. Yes. They will be just promoting, I don't know how important they are in this deal. Maybe not just for the sake of the name, probably to show.
Well, also Japan's interests in Mongolia are very
financial but the Sumitomo interest role just promoting it sounds very, very little compared to the country we expect from a bigger investment. So we want to know more details of these negotiations, and hopefully we should do it as soon as possible. And then it's a big issue of this investment in infrastructure is the big issue, I think.
Moving on to our final topic, going back to politics, the choice for new leadership from Mongolia's two major parties is raising questions about party finance. The Democratic Party is hosting a nationwide contest to decide the next chair of the party, with the caucus leaders S. Erdogan, sitting MPs D. Erdenbat, G. Batsandan, and the former seat holders Norov Altenhoyg and El Gantumer running campaigns. Last year, some balked at the proposition that these candidates had to put up a lot of money up front in order to be allowed to run in the race. So, of course, we can't talk about reform without talking about finance, so I'd like to just lead you with that. What do you think about this?
Well, Democratic Party leader, and through them the institution's capacity is not the only Democratic Party concern. It's a concern of Mongolian democracy and Mongolian people. And of course, by selecting one chair doesn't make selection, or now voting is coming, almost today is happening, and then whoever comes to the head of the Democratic Party, the issue is still remaining with what is the institutions about? Do they know all members? Do all members know about their mission, vision, their role, what fault are they coming for power, etc. Good news is with this five candidates running for leadership is they had a good chance to register all members of Democratic Party, which turned out, as of yesterday, more than 100,000 registered party members, which is good news. But still, the financing of this political institution is not clear. And when the institution's finance is not clear, it's very hard to say it is as institutions, or some institutions that does not depend on individuals. Institutions should not depend on one person. So now it's again we are raising an issue of political parties financing, and now again a question comes to several candidates here where they are taking money. Have they reported, according to our existing law, within 2 months after election, all their revenues and costs? No. And the same issue comes to the People's Party. Have they reported to Mongolian public how much money they have received and spent? No. And these two institutions, only the leaders, the heads know, not the members, not even the executive committee know how much money they finally received. Is it institutions then? Or is it mafia? So that's the ordinary Mongolians raising an issue, and we want to see Democratic Party reporting that first. Secondly, there should be institutions that enforces these political parties report their finances. It could be, for example, currently we call it election committee. But we would like to see not election committee, electorate committee, where not only just political parties are represented, but also ordinary Mongolians, well-known Mongolian individuals in society to be represented. Then they will go after the political party, ask them to report every quarterly, like in the UK. Quarterly, everybody reports how much money they have received, and that electorate committee, commission, whatever it's called, go there, check it, and say that it's checked. So this is the way to make clean Mongolian political parties from corruption. And the corruption is the problem in the society.
I really gotta wonder the wisdom behind asking their candidates to put up money. In the end, you're just institutionalizing cronyism, and it's hard not to be cynical about a democratic process that operates that way.
Institutions, if it is institutions, if they are institutions, definitely should have these features we have just now described.
Yeah.
Until they have it, it's very hard to say institutions. And those institutions yet have the only right to be part of election. Through the election, they have a full right to take a power in the society. And unfortunately, when they are misusing these channels for own personal benefit, funneling the public resources, public funds, unfortunately. So Mongolian democracy is at the very critical time of its growth in a way. So, but good thing is now you and me can discuss. And 1 hour ago we had everything discussed in Mongolian to our audience. The very fact that we can discuss like this hopefully gives a good chance.
And one last thing, the Mongolian People's Party is putting up its own chairman, Miagom Enkbolt, to run for president. If they do in fact change the rules, it seems inevitable that he will be president. Would the Mongolian People's Party have to go ahead and choose a new chairman after that, or could he retain that position at the same time?
Well, unfortunately they can do whatever they want, like the previous power as well. And they don't ask us, is it right or not? They do whatever they want. But my concern is if this People's Party, and by the way, this speaker, unlike many previous speakers,
Enkbolt, who's also the chairman.
No, the Enkbolt became chair of the party later on,
yes,
after he became a speaker. But before that, it was a practice that the chair of a political party, as soon as they win, take a power, they become prime minister.
Exactly.
But the current speaker somehow prefer not to be prime minister, and he will be running. He wants to run for the president of Mongolia next year. So that's why they are preparing the all laws so that he can surely be elected.
Well, I think that's a lot of perception. Erdogan is a young guy, and he's also a former finance minister. These are the kind of things that look good for the current society, as well as when you're going to have to fix your economy.
Yeah, and ideally, it would be great if these two political parties have on primary inside of their political parties who will be running for president, like a U.S. presidential primary. By that time, if they do it, then we will know more who is who, what is his plan, much before that he is elected even. So that's, I think, the maturity of democracy we want to see in Mongolia. But somehow this People's Party people have a silence on that. And they have very little whistleblowers inside of this People's Party, as well as the Democratic Party. They keep silence on the elephant in the room. That's what makes me very skeptic about the internal democracy of these institutions. Without internal democracy, how they can make the whole country democratic? Impossible.
Yeah, it looks like there's lots of room for change there. But that's going to have to be our final thought for the day. We hope our briefings this evening give you a heads up as you enter the work week on Monday.
And we will try every week also, as like last year, we will try this year again to brief everybody speaking English to inform you with independent, not only news, but kind of opinions, so that you are more involved in the deals of this society, which we hope will be even better this year, better than last year. Thank you very much for watching us.
Good night, all, Ambatar.
See you.